Good evening, everyone. You're listening to Red Pill 78. I am the corruption detector, and this is your Red Pill news for Saturday night live stream. Hope everyone's having a nice day. It's a beautiful summer, sunny day outside. We've got the chat on ultra low latency tonight, you guys. So it should be basically you type and then it shows up on the screen. So I'd like to, see how everybody feels about that. Let's see, you guys. What are you guys doing? Are you guys having a great summer? It certainly is a beautiful day. I am so proud to be here with you guys. I see people from Kansas, people from, let's see, the QAnon family, lots of just hellos. North Georgia, Texas, Florida, Liberty, Missouri, Kentucky, Canada, Florida, New York, Oklahoma, Colorado, New Jersey, Florida, Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin, and there it goes. Too fast for me to even read, you guys. Let me just throw this on just a slight slow mode. We're just going to give it a mini slow mode here so that it's just a little bit easier to read. But Tennessee, Oklahoma, Indiana, Tucson, Arizona, Baltimore, Maryland. We're going to go for a 30-second slow mode. Okay, there we go. Let's see, guys. So we've got several interesting guests for you guys tonight. Lots of good people. My friend Thomas is going to be here in the second hour from TRUReporting. But in the first hour, we're going to be speaking with journalist Michael Volpe. Michael Volpe has done some amazing reporting for places like the Daily Caller and WND. Lots of great spots, places that you and I all respect. So I believe that Michael has some credibility, and we're going to be talking about medical kidnapping and some some corruption in the judicial system in America. Now, before I bring in Michael, I just want to announce something, you guys. The Red Pill 78 merchandise store is now live. It is live. So you guys are going to be able to go and buy your own shirts that say Red Pill 78 on them. You can also get other cool things like iPhone and Android cases. I believe there's some coffee mugs. I think there's even some bath towels in there. Pretty cool. My friend and partner on the store, Bree, is going to be here just after the first hour, and we're going to be talking about what's in that store, and I'm going to show you guys. And if you like it, then you can go purchase things, and you'll be supporting me and the show, and you'll also be supporting Bree because she's a great artist. She did all the graphic design and put it all together for me. So now that we've got that out of the way, we're going to be calling in Michael Volpe, and let's see what we can do here.
You there?
Yes, I am. Michael, how are you?
Good.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I appreciate you taking the time out to do this.
Okay. So where are we at?
We're live on the air at the moment.
Okay. All right. You got some questions for me?
Yeah, definitely. Well, first of all, I'd like to introduce the audience to you. I mean, I first became aware of you from your reporting for the Daily Caller on that VA whistleblower story. And then some other articles were brought to my attention. But please tell us about yourself and, how you got into journalism.
Yeah. So I've been doing freelance since really 2007, though I really didn't start making money until 2009, 2010. Initially, way back when, I was contacted by a guy named Kevin Koritsky. At the time, I wasn't even supposed to say his name. And he was a whistleblower at Emory University at their medical school. And so that became the first long investigation. Their medical school essentially corrupts their relationship with Grady Hospital, which is the hospital that they do all of that all their med students learn at. Grady Hospital is for very poor people. So what they do is they essentially, at least at the time, they left the med students to roam wild while the doctors who were supposed to oversee them would go to the hospitals with more money where patients who could afford to pay would get treated. And so the poor people were getting screwed, and the relationship was extremely corrupted. And so that was about a year or two. And so more as I started making money more in like 2009 and 2010, and I've done all sorts of investigations, corrupt cops, corrupt politicians, corrupt nonprofits, corrupt businesses, and since late 2013, a lot of corruption all throughout the court system, and specifically family court. And another thing that I'm known for is the Department of Veterans Affairs, which is completely jacked up, and it's bipartisan or nonpartisan. It's just as jacked up under the Trump administration as it was under the Obama administration. And don't let Donald Trump fool you. They did pass a bill that supposedly made more accountability and you can fire more people. It has helped at the margins. It's completely jacked up, and in fact, it's been jacked up since it was created in the 1920s. It was one of the three main scandals that makes Warren Harding a very bad president. Not his main scandal, but I don't think that the VA's ever functioned properly. So it's not really who is the president, whereas it's just a rotten to the core agency. And that's something that I've covered a lot. And courts are rotten to the core as well.
I can agree with you on both points. My background is in public administration and nonprofits as well, so I fully understand the dangers that we face with bloated bureaucracy, like it's in such cases as the VA, and then also the amount of corruption that goes into nonprofits. And those are essentially just money machines. If people can find a niche, write a proposal, then they can just basically farm out money. And we're seeing something play out right now with Elijah Cummings and his wife. They had a nonprofit and then they had a for-profit consulting firm, and they essentially had the exact same name, and they were using them just to bounce money back and forth and from the committees that Elijah was on and the people, the companies that were coming before him, and then steering that business right into their coffers.
That's correct, and the Daily Caller's done a lot of good work on that.
Yes.
The main investigation I did was an organization called Neighborhood Housing Services of Chicago. And one thing people need to keep in mind, it's very easy to corrupt a nonprofit because on the surface it does good. So what Neighborhood Housing Services claims to do is help poor people find homes, get homes, keep homes, help in like underprivileged communities to build up homes. And what they actually did was do all sorts of horrible loans and ripped off poor people, and at the same time gave sweetheart deals to connected people. Yep. And I remember I talked to a lawyer for the Neighborhood Housing Services, and he said, "We're the good guys. We're the ones helping people." And the whole time he's saying it, I'm going, "That's a great scam."
Yeah.
That's a great scam. Yeah, you say it. You say you. That's what you say. And if you want to rip people off, if you're in a place that's supposed to do good, it's really easy to do it. That's if you guys wanted to read it, I wrote that for something called Capital Research Center in 2014. But if you Google my name, Neighborhood Housing Services, and Capital Research Center, you can find that. But yeah, I do. As one guy said, I have a crazy story, and my response is that's what I major in. So if you have a crazy story, you want to go find me.
That's great. People in the chat are commenting a little bit. They're confused about the idea of a nonprofit and how it could, it must make money. But here's the thing. Nonprofits have a mission, okay, and it's to serve in some capacity. And then they have a budget for that mission. And then they receive grants from the government or money from private lenders or private funding, rather, from companies and people donating to them. And everybody on their staff has to have a salary. And then the only thing about a nonprofit is they must spend that budget by the end of the year, and it has to be accounted for. So they can put that money into whatever it is, as long as it's in the budget and they say that it's in serving of their mission. So it allows for a lot of waste and for a lot of things to get moved around. And then because there's so much money, they can do what you said. They give sweetheart deals to people that they like, and then they screw over people that they're looking to screw over.
That's correct. And the most important thing, as a nonprofit, they don't pay taxes.
Yes,
but you're
exactly
right. A nonprofit is not supposed to make a profit, but you can get creative with that stuff every which way. I think we're going to talk about different things, but I get into all of that when I looked at Neighborhood Housing Services. And I looked at nonprofits in other ways. Like I looked at the Kellogg's Foundation, which was completely different. It wasn't that they were scamming people for money. It was more that was started by the guy who created Kellogg's cereal.
Yep.
What they were doing more is it's called mission creep, meaning he wanted the money to go to hospitals, schools, to improve a lot in the area that he grew up in. And they were starting to give it to a lot of left-wingers and just gave money to places. He's no longer alive. It's his money. Without William Kellogg, there'd be no Kellogg Foundation. But so he's no longer alive to say, hey, stop spending my money that way. And it wasn't necessarily half their budget, but number one, it's such a huge nonprofit. But number two, 5 or 10%, you're still misspending the guy's money. So there's different ways to corrupt. And I don't know that I would call it corrupting, but they were, in that case, it wasn't that they were like, it wasn't what you're talking about with Cummings, and it's not what was going on with neighborhood housing services. But it was a different thing where they were just giving it grants to places that probably shouldn't get it from the Kellogg Foundation. There's plenty of left-wing nonprofits that give money to left-wingers, but that's not what Kellogg wanted. So it was a different deal. There's a lot of different ways that nonprofits can get corrupted, and folks should check. If you give money, you should find out what is their overhead, how much of your dollar is going to be spent on the thing that they're claiming it's going to be spent on, how much of it is going to go to salary. You'd be surprised. Some of it, it's like 99 cents on the dollar goes exactly where you say. Some of it's like 10 cents on the dollar. Yep. And there are groups that track that kind of thing. But yeah, look, nonprofits, it's a great place to corrupt is a nonprofit.
Yeah, Clinton Foundation, case in point. We're seeing a lot of things coming out about them. But specifically, we called you on the show to talk tonight, Mike, about what you discovered in the Arizona Department of Child Safety. So let's go with that. How did you come across this story?
Well, I could have done this story anytime. I have a ton of contacts that have been abused by Child Protective Services, and they have different names in different states. The way the story came about is there was a raid of a home by the SWAT team in, I believe, February of 2019, where they took 3 kids. And the reason they took all 3 kids is because one of them, who was like 2 or 3 years old, had a high fever. They took him to some doctor who thought that the kid should go to the emergency room, and the parents, and I think the doctor said it was like 106-degree fever. Well, that's impossible. The kid would be dead, and the parents didn't believe it. They stopped at a Walgreens on the way home or on the way from the doctor and took the temperature, and the temperature was like 101, and they decided not to spend the money on the emergency room, and they went home. And when this doctor found out, they called Department of Child Safety, who called the cops, or at some point a judge got involved. And next thing you know, the SWAT team is breaking down the door, taking all 3 kids, and that became a national story. And that's an example of what's called medical kidnap. So medical kidnap is when you disagree with a doctor, and the doctor is so offended that they call Child Protective Services or whatever it's called, and suddenly your child or children are taken because you dare to disagree with whatever recommendation a doctor gives, even though, as I said, it's called a recommendation.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to think the amount of power that a doctor is going to have. And, it could be one of many different things. Maybe they just didn't like the way you looked, or maybe they have some type of a relationship with somebody.
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Ultimately, it's the parents' call. The idea that a doctor would ever suggest that because the parents disagreed with whatever. Look, I'm not saying you should disagree with your doctor. But the idea that Department of Child Safety or Child Protective Services should ever get involved because parents disagree with whatever recommendation a doctor makes is we're getting towards Nazi Germany type of attitude. And then beyond that they would bring in the SWAT team, that they'd break your door down, and they take all 3 of your kids. And there's one other thing about that particular story. The parents, I believe, were anti-vaxxers. However, there's something very important people need to understand. CPS will swear up and down nationally, not just in your whatever location you're in, that if you don't vaccinate your kids, that is not, let me repeat that is not a reason for them to take your kids. So we know, because they would never lie to us, we know that they didn't take them just because they're anti-vaxxers. So there was sort of like the side angle to that story. But in my opinion, I don't think they would ever take. I think CPS would take your kids because you're an anti-vaxxer. They just wouldn't say it.
Oh,
They'd come up with some other goofy reason and take your kids and then vaccinate them. And we don't need to get into a vaccination debate, but this is where we're getting that. Who has the authority to make a decision for the child? Is it the parents or the state? And more, it's the state.
That's right. It's very scary. There's like this creeping authoritarianism. They're just trying to push down our throats everything that the state
Can I talk
needs.
about why that's happening?
Oh, please do.
Yeah, the main reason for that is Child Protective Services is incentivized over and over to take your child, place them into foster care, keep them in foster care, and even adopt them out financially. This all started, and let me give you some stats first. In the early 1960s, there was approximately 5,000 children in the entire nation in foster care. There's currently 450,000 in the entire nation, a little less than 14,000 in Arizona alone. The main reason that happened is several laws. There's one in the 1970s, 1974, the Child Abuse Protection and Treatment Act. And then into the 1990s when they created Social Security Title IV and another law called the Adoption and Safe Families Act. The ASFA is the acronym, and that was the brainchild of Hillary Clinton. What all of these laws did was they provided funds from the federal government to the states in order to take children, put them into foster care, keep them in foster care, and as far as ASFA is concerned, to then adopt them out. So the reason we have seen this explosion of these kinds of cases of medical kidnapping and all of this stuff is because they are being paid to do it. That is the reason why there was only 5,000 kids in foster care in the 60s and suddenly there's 450,000. There is a financial incentive to do it. And the sad part is you eliminate these programs, you eliminate the financial incentive, and we go back to the way we were. It's a very simple fix. The problem is you and I are talking about it. Has Rachel Maddow talked about it? No. Does Tucker Carlson talk about it? No. Does Laura Ingraham talk about it? No. Do the three broadcast networks talk about it? No. They'll spend hours and hours and hours hyper analyzing every tweet by Donald Trump, but 450,000 kids in foster care they won't talk about. You know what they will talk about? 2,000 migrant kids who are separated from their parents. 450,000 American kids separated from their parents they won't talk about. 2,000 migrant kids separated from their parents they'll talk about all day long.
Now, Mike, when you say that there's a financial incentive, who exactly is it that is profiting off of this scheme?
The states and the county. It helps the budgets. It's federal funds. So in other words, like that child who was taken in Chandler, Arizona, there's a federal government grant that started paying the state for I don't know about every day, but for that time period that the child was being held in foster care. So I'm not sure where in the state it wound up, but the states or the counties, however it's structured, but basically the localities at the expense of the federal government. That's who's profiting from this. And then look, here's the other thing people need to understand. Child Protective Services is a bureaucracy like every bureaucracy. And the dirty little secret is the number one goal of any bureaucracy is to justify it exists. So if you are a social worker for Child Protective Services and you have 10 cases and you go and examine the 10 cases and you say, hey, you know what, the parents are fine. We don't need to take any kids. They're fine. Well, then you don't need to work. Yeah. Do you understand? If you go in and see 10 people and you say, we don't need to do anything with these 10 people, well, then I don't think you need a job. So in order to justify your existence as a social worker, you have to take kids. Because if you don't take any kids, then you don't need to be there.
That's incredible, but it's exactly right. So in that case that you were just speaking about, do you know what the resolution on that was? Did the parents ever get the kids back?
Yes. So number one, this is very important, that somehow the raid was leaked. And then it got picked up first in Arizona, then nationally, everything from the New York Times to Breitbart to Reason Magazine to Daily Caller with me. So there's a lot of media pressure. By May, a judge had given the kids back to the parents, but they're not completely free. They are still being monitored by the courts. The kids are back with the parents, but they are not necessarily totally 100% free to act on their own volition, and they have to still answer to the courts. However, in the interim, the courts violated the First Amendment rights of the Arizona Republic, of a state legislator. I'm not sure if she's state senator or state representative. Her last name is Townsend, where they actually wrote an order which said you're not allowed to write an article to the Arizona Republic, which the Arizona Republic challenged and eventually got overturned. Ms. Townsend was thrown out of a hearing because the judge said you had previously held a press conference. She argued that she didn't hold a press conference. My argument would have been, who cares if I held a press conference? What business is it of yours if I held a press conference? And she was quoted as saying, if they can do this to me, a politician, who else are they doing it to? And oh, by the way, the parents have a gag order. You will not find one quote from the parents because they're not allowed to speak about it. I think what happened here is by accident, this story leaked. It blew up, and whatever plans they had got completely destroyed. But the plan really was to take these kids, hold these kids, and probably to adopt them out. But they couldn't because the media happened to cover this. But I think they made a huge mistake because it's not just me covering this stuff. The Arizona Republic is all over, and they are finding a lot of cases that are bad, and they're publishing a lot. And I think that DCS and the judges and a lot of people are going to regret coming into that Chandler home with a SWAT team, because a lot of dirty laundry is being aired at DCS in Arizona. But that's just in Arizona. The thing people need to understand, Arizona is especially bad. It's rotten all over the country. My opinion, it is an illegal, unconstitutional agency which does what Special Victims Unit does, and what we need to do is abolish it. And the only time you should take kids is if they've committed a crime. If you beat your kids, that's illegal. You molest your kids, that's illegal. You drink around your kids, that's illegal. You do drugs, that's illegal on its own. You're doing drugs around your kid, that's illegal. Those are reason to take your kids, and those are crimes. So, and those get investigated by Special Victims Unit, and everything else. There's a story, I don't remember what state it was in, that was recently published, and I believe in Reason Magazine, where a mother left 2 or 3 of her kids in a car while she ran to Dunkin' Donuts, and next thing you know, the cops showed up, and next thing you know, Child Protective Services shows up. And those are the things that we need to leave the parents alone. And this is the overreaction because kids die in cars. But she left them in like 60-degree weather, and she was gone for 10 minutes. So we have this overreaction to a handful of fatalities. So now suddenly everybody's got their radar up, and if you see any kids in cars, well, we must call Child Protective Services. Those are the kinds of things we need to stay away from.
Now, Mike, what kind of accountability is out there? I mean, who is watching over these kids that are in this system, and who is, making the ultimate decisions on what happens with them?
Judges are making the ultimate decisions. Who's watching them? Nobody's watching them. Social workers are watching them, but these social workers at Child Protective Services, they're notorious, number one, for not really being well trained, but more importantly, even if they're well trained and well meaning, and not all of them are well meaning or well trained, they're all overworked. So the social workers are supposed to be watching them, but there's story after story after story where they're beaten and the social worker hadn't been there in 12 months, 5 months, 6 months, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, and the excuse is, oh my God, look at my caseload. So nobody's watching them. Judges are making decisions. Most of these decisions are being done in secret courts because, you got to protect the privacy of the kids, so they got to all be done in secret. But judges who are drunk on power, and another thing you got to understand, they're not listening to the parents because the parents aren't in their courtrooms daily and weekly and monthly. They're listening to these social workers who show up daily, weekly, and monthly. So the social workers become kings and queens. If they think the kids should be taken, the judge is going to take that as gospel and become a rubber stamp.
It's just mind-boggling to think about. So do you think that this is an organized effort between individuals within these agencies and the kind of satellite industries that have to pop up to prop them up, or do you think that it's strictly like a state level thing?
I'm not sure. I don't have enough knowledge to know the exact structure, but it's organized. It's one or the other, but this is not disorganized. It's very organized. I don't know specifically how it's organized, but this is very organized.
All right. And in the vast majority of these cases, I mean, what does happen to the children? Do they end up going home?
Once you're in foster care, 1 in 100 live a good life.
Yeah. Wow, that's just incredible. Now, there was another case in here, Justina Peltier. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so that became that sort of was a springboard. That was the most notorious case, probably nationally. And the reason it was really notorious, number one, was her parents are pretty well off, but she had a rare mitochondrial disorder, and they were taking her to Tufts, and the doctor who saw her was sick or whatever reason wasn't there, and they took her to Boston Children's Hospital one day, and whatever doctor saw her decided on the spot that she didn't have this disorder, that it was psychosomatic, if you will, that it was all in her head, and that she needed to be taken. And then suddenly for the next 16 months, I think, more than a year, she's in foster care with two parents who are well off, who are essentially model parents. And it became notorious in part because people like Megyn Kelly, Mike Huckabee, when he had a show, Glenn Beck, and others talked about it. But it looked like an anomaly because people normally think, well, you must be poor, so then you'll, the poor parents who really can't parent their kids, those are the ones who wind up in foster care. And the mistake the media made was, oh, we need to talk about this case because it's so shocking. The shocking part is not that Justina Pelletier was taken. The shocking part is there are hundreds of thousands of kids like Justina Pelletier throughout the system.
Now, someone in the chat actually just gave a statistic. They said 88% of trafficked children come through our foster care system.
Correct.
Okay, please.
I don't know if that's correct, but I have read an article that said that. So I will agree to that point. I haven't done a study myself, but I have read an article, and it's certainly the overwhelming number. Look, they're the most vulnerable kids, so it makes sense. I don't know if it's 88%. It's very high, though.
All right. And now, in your research for these two cases and maybe any others that you've looked into, have you done much digging into the judges and the administrators? Can you tell us anything specific about that?
Yeah, well, one guy I talked to, Martin Lynch, said that they just act as a rubber stamp. But look, I've done plenty of digging into judges, not just in Child Protective Services. Let me just say this: far too many judges are drunk on power. They're full of hubris, and they're not nearly as smart as they think they are.
Do you think that it's possible the judges themselves could be getting kickbacks from this type of scheme?
Not only from this type of scheme, but hopefully we can talk about family court in general. I think 50 to 90% of these really what they call I can't remember the title, but yeah, I think there's a lot of kickbacks in family court. Yes.
All right. In your research, did you come across anyone that was willing to speak about this, like as a certainty?
It's hard to prove. It's very hard to prove bribery because we don't have subpoena power. So I don't have smoking guns in the sense that that I have a paper trail. The smoking guns that I have are what's called circumstantial evidence. Now, what you need to understand is there are plenty of criminal cases where circumstantial evidence has led to a conviction. So in the second article that hopefully we can talk about, the Rucky case, a multi-million-dollar divorce, multi-millions. David Rucky got 100%, got sole custody of the kids, and he also got child support. Okay? And on top of it, he's got a bar fight, road rage incident, once put a gun to his son's head. He once chased after his daughter until she barricaded herself in the house. He once threw his daughter into a refrigerator, a whole bunch of violence, all of it ignored by the judge. The judge's name is David Knutson. I think that's circumstantial evidence that Knutson was being bribed. Can I prove it? I don't have the paper trail. I did one for a guy named Neil Shelton, same thing. He got 0. His ex-wife got 100%. You'd be amazed how often that in a divorce settlement it's 0 to 100%, even though it's supposed to be equitable distribution. Well, what am I supposed to think? If person after person after person comes to me and says, I got 0 and my ex got 100%, what am I supposed to think, except that probably in most of those cases, the judge is being bribed?
It would make sense. Now, in any of these cases where children were taken and they were, eventually given back to the families, do those families have anything that they can do thereafter, like to clear their names, to go after people that maybe acted inappropriately?
Yeah, there's a lawyer named Sean McMillan who's made a fortune doing this. They do, and if your rights were violated and you get the right lawyer, you can sue, you can make a lot of money. Folks can look up his McMillan, Sean, SHAWN. There's article after article after article where settlement for this amount of money, millions, hundreds of thousands, maybe even tens of millions in 1 or 2 cases. He's won a lot of money. You see it. They can, theoretically, realistically, Sean McMillan is one guy, and he practices in California. So if you're not in California, there's probably not a good lawyer to do it. So you can. It's happened. Don't count on it.
Wow. This is a huge system, and there's all kinds of areas I can see where people would be willing to do this because a lot of people in these types of situations are willing to maybe bend their morals so that they can get a quick buck. And I'm sure that they're probably looking at these families with a slightly slanted eye, not having much respect for them. Now, in the other Arizona case, that was the governor. You were talking about the governor in the article, and the system that they had set up. Is it unique in Arizona? I mean, does Arizona take more children, or?
Yeah, they take more children, but it's not unique in the sense that Arizona. DCS is what they call it, is really, really bad, but it's fully functioning in Illinois. It's essentially levels of bad. There is no fully functioning child protective services that rarely, if ever, takes a kid when they shouldn't take a kid. So it's extra bad in Arizona. I don't think it's necessarily the worst. It's gained a reputation as extra bad, but that doesn't mean that in, North Dakota or Maine or Florida or South Carolina that CPS is fully functional. It's poorly functional, and remember, it's the incentives. So that's not different. It's federal incentives. They got the same federal incentives in South Carolina. I was reading this remarkable article where the governor of Louisiana was justifying it was a liberal Democratic governor who signed like a very anti-abortion bill. And at one point, the governor said, we have adopted out a record number of kids from foster care. And people they do not even process what that means. That's not a good thing. That's a bad thing.
No, that means that all those
people don't understand that that's a bad thing. But no, it's just, there is no reason for child protective services. That is what Special Victims Unit is for. It's for the abuse of kids, as well as rapes. But if you're committing a crime in abusing a child, Special Victims Unit investigates. It's like Child Protective Services is like, you're doing bad things, but not bad enough to be investigated by SVU. And it's completely ridiculous. So if it's not bad enough to be investigated by SVU, then stay the hell out. No, it's not functional in any of these states. It's just extra bad in Arizona.
Now, there is so many children that are in here that have been taken away, and they just end up getting stuck in there. And a vast majority of them do end up, being abused by the people that they're placed with. I know that there are many good people that are foster parents out there, and I've seen a couple of comments from people in the chat tonight who are. Do you know if there's any kind of, maybe a screening process to make sure that these children are being placed with people who are going to keep them safe?
Sometimes, but look, there's a case, Baby Devani in Arizona, and she was placed with a guy who was running a child porn ring. Was that guy vetted? Doesn't sound like it. No. And by the way, after they grabbed her from him, they placed her with another parent who adopted her, who scalded her with hot water, and she burnt 80% of her body. And they took the kid from a parent they claimed was abusing her, who was not. There can be, but it's certainly not across the board. I'm not going to say that there is no vetting anywhere, but the idea that foster parents go through a very cumbersome and strict vetting process 100% of the time is not accurate.
So scary. Do you have any other specific cases on this that you want to talk about before we get into your other work with elder abuse?
Right. What I wanted to talk about was can we talk about the Rucky case?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. That's exactly it.
Okay. So the Rucky case, I've done a ton of stuff on corruption, and nothing comes even close to the Rucky case. So number one, let me lay out the most important thing is this case comes down to whether or not David Rucky is abusive. Because if he is, then everything that they did to Sam, his ex-wife, and her 5 children is very, very bad. And also the media claims that there's no evidence that he's abusive. So he had a bar fight in 1994. In 2014, a guy flicked him off. He followed that guy. He beat him up, and then he went shopping. He was convicted in 1994 of disorderly conduct and in 2014 of disorderly conduct, even though that's assault. His neighbors were so afraid of David Rucky, they stuck a video camera on top of their house. He once threatened to kill his in-law during a fight over a probate matter. As I said, he chased after his daughter until she had to barricade herself in her house on her 13th birthday. His son, Nico, said that when Nico was 8 years old, his father stuck a gun to his head. That's very important. People are in the chat room. Go look up Nico. Nico now says he's never seen his father be violent. So either he was lying in the and that's in a Child Protective Services report. And oh, by the way, Child Protective Services I've got 25 pages of Child Protective Services reports. They never found any problems with David Rucky. Melissa Deagle, who I talked about, the parents of Justina Pelletier, they take those kids quick. Nico can tell Child Protective Services his father stuck a gun to his head, and there's like, no, he's fine, no big deal. So have I given you enough evidence that the guy is violent?
Oh, yes, I'm convinced.
Right. So Sandra Grazzini Rucky goes by Sam. Sam and David got married in 1991. He was abusive to her. He was abusive to the kids. They have 5 kids in 2011. The divorce appears initially to be fine. They go through the divorce in 3 months. There's a divorce decree. What a divorce decree is, it's supposed to be the end of the divorce. And if you have people in your chat room, go look up this case. You're not going to find one article except for mine that talk about this divorce decree initially. The divorce decree gives David almost all of the assets. Sam gets the house they lived in. They have 4 houses. He gets the other 3 and 100% of their multi-million-dollar business. She gets the kids because that's all she wanted. He was not even represented by an attorney during this initial period. He then hires an attorney, a woman named Lisa Elliott. And Lisa Elliott, this case was broadcast on 2020. During the 2020 broadcast, she called this a guerrilla divorce, Guerrilla. The guerrilla part started the minute she came on. She came on in 2011. She's still on the case. She now represents his kids. She represents everyone. She's made millions off of David Rucky. So she comes on, challenges a divorce, and they claim that David Rucky thought it was just a paper divorce. Well, you know what? There's no such thing as a paper divorce. But what he claimed was that Sam came to him and said, there's some insurance matter, and if we get divorced, I'll get a better settlement. And he claimed that he believed her, and he didn't realize they were getting divorced. Now, initially, the divorce decree was signed by a guy named Tim Wormiger, the judge. That judge was replaced by a guy named David Knutson, who then took over everything. And so he, based strictly on David Rucky's word that this was a paper divorce, called it a fraud, opened up the divorce, and since David Rucky had gotten almost all of the assets, all that he had left was to go after the kids. So you fast forward to late August 2012. They get what's called a property settlement, which reaffirms that Sam owns the house she lived in. But she also is given a note, and that note says you have to go meet a guy named Paul Reitman, and if you don't, we're going to place your kids into foster care and put you in jail. She meets with Paul Reitman for 1.5 hours, less than that. And Reitman writes a note to the court, and that note says that the mother is so bad, the situation is so horrible, we need to remove her from the situation immediately. So David Knutson, in his infinite wisdom, called what he called a telephonic conference, not a regular hearing, a non-traditional, whatever you call it, because it's not a hearing, because he called it a telephonic conference on September 5. He, during this hearing, and this is in my article, it's called Police Raids. I don't remember the whole title, but it's on the Daily Caller. He, from this hearing, writes an order in which he orders Sam to leave her house, but he doesn't give custody to her ex-husband. He gives custody to her ex-husband's sister. So her ex-husband's sister moves in, except when the kids get home and they find that their mother's not there, they run to the police station. They're placed with their maternal aunt, Sam's sister. And that stays that way until April 19th, 2013. The two oldest daughters, Samantha and Gianna, and I'm using their names because they're over 18 now, they're driven by their Aunt Nancy, Sam's sister, and she tells them, we're going to go for pizza, but we just have to make one stop. That stop is the Lakeville, Minnesota Police Department. Lakeville is where the home is. And they're taken into an interrogation room, and they are told you're going to go move in with your paternal aunt. And a guy named Jim Gilbertson, who was another shrink who was appointed by David Knutson, was on like speaker on the phone. He said, and this is the plan all along. They are then escorted by police, taken to their home. Within a half hour of the police leaving, they run. While on the run, they call their mother, and they say, we're running with or without you, because they're making us live with our paternal aunt. And they were told that the transition was going to be to their father. So it's basically, you're going to live with your father. They are hidden in like northern Minnesota with Doug and Gina Dowland, who run a horse farm for abused children. And there's no doubt they were abused. And they're hidden for approximately 2.5 years. And for the first 2 years, nobody even looked for them. The only reason anyone looked for them is because on April 19th, 2015, a guy named Brandon Stahl with the Minneapolis Star-Tribune wrote an article for the 2-year anniversary of the girls going missing. Now, I sent Brandon an email and I said, you know what, I can't find any articles before April 19th, 2015. Are you telling me that the very first article you wrote about this case was on the 2-year anniversary of them running? And his answer was yes. For whatever reason, even though he was contacted by Sam repeatedly, by friends of hers to try to explain, to get the truth out, he refused to do that. He did write an article on the 2-year anniversary, and he got a tip. What he got a tip was a guy named Dale Nathan, who was helping Sam. He was with her when the girls called her, and Nathan, for whatever reason, told him. So now the chase was on. So we fast forward to August of 2015. And at that point, the same Brandon Stahl writes another article because he got leaked a sealed arrest warrant. Now, he didn't tell his audience that the arrest warrant was sealed, nor did he tell his audience that it was leaked. Now, what sealed means is the target, and the arrest warrant was for Sam, because they had presumably had enough evidence that she helped hide the kids. Oh, you know what? I forgot a very important part. Mm-hmm. Let me take a step back. September of 2013. Now, the girls are still missing. David Knutson, in his infinite wisdom, holds a custody trial. At this point, Sam has a lawyer named Michelle McDonald. On the eve of trial, she files a lawsuit against Knutson and others for violating Sam's civil rights. She asks him to recuse himself. He refuses. On the second day of the trial, they take a break. During the break, the deputies that police the courthouse, they grab Michelle McDonald, they take her into a back room, they tell Sam, the trial is over, your attorney is about to be detained. She goes home. McDonald is strapped to a wheelchair, then wheeled back in and told to continue with the trial while strapped to a wheelchair. And from that farce of a hearing, David Knutson gave David Rucky sole custody. So the reason hiding the kids would then become illegal is because David Rucky would have had sole custody. So we then fast forward to October of 2015. The kids still haven't been found. Sam was a flight attendant. She had just finished a flight. She's at it wasn't a hotel. I think they called it a timeshare, but it's somewhere in Florida. And she's sleeping, and the flight attendant who she was with was watching TV. He gets a knock on the door. He opens the door to 4 U.S. Marshals in SWAT gear with rifles pointed at him. They throw him on the ground, on his stomach. They handcuff him with his hands behind his back. They then bum rush the bedroom where Sam is. They put 4 rifles to her head, throw her off the bed. She's standing naked. The only reason she's able to put on any clothes is because her friend was screaming to let her put on clothes. They then scream, "Where are the kids? Where are the guns?" Because the U.S. Marshals were told by the state of Minnesota that they were being charged with gun running, child trafficking, and kidnapping. They find 2 flight bags, no guns, no kids. And then when the warrant is ready to be executed, the state of Minnesota says, oopsie, no, that's the wrong warrant, but there is a warrant here, so why don't you go ahead and hold her? The U.S. Marshals, who should have just let her go, then take her to Osceola County in Florida, and they hold her on either child trafficking or kidnapping. And because of the seriousness of the charges, she's held with a woman named, it's either Elizabeth or Victoria Rios, who is charged with murder. And Rios says, "You're not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to have any roommates because of the seriousness of my charges." She's then transported, not even by prison bus, by prison van, with the worst of the worst criminals. And she is shackled, handcuffed, and the shackles and the handcuffs are tied together and then put into a cage separately because someone told them that she's even worse than everyone else in that van. She's then makes 6 or 7 stops. It takes her a week and a half to get to Minnesota. By the time she gets to Minnesota, the cops say, oopsie, it was a computer glitch. You weren't really charged with child trafficking. You were charged with something called parental deprivation, which has presumed probation and also has a year and a day maximum, but that's only if you have a criminal record. And when I confronted the U.S. Marshals, the guy who I confronted, his name is Dave Oney, he had the gall to tell me that she was a fugitive, that they were responding to a fugitive warrant, at which point I sent him the warrant, and I said, "You see where it says sealed?" And do you know what he told me when he saw that sealed warrant? Do you know what he told me?
No.
Nothing. He lied to me, and when I called him out on it, he had no response. So they bring her back. While all of this is happening, her friends reach out to all of the media, including 2020, and their producer, his name is Sean Dooley, responds to Michelle McDonald and says, "We want to do the story. We want to make it Sam's story." And they made it seem like they were trying to help her, and they did look like they were going to help her in the beginning, but by the time they did the second interview, everything changed. And if you watch the broadcast, it's called Footprints in the Snow. They manipulate the broadcast. At one point, Elizabeth Vargas, who, by the way, is no longer with 2020, she now does cults on A&E. I don't think that's what her career path was meant to be. I don't know if it had anything to do with this case, but I don't believe she wanted to leave 2020. But she at one point asked, are there any police reports of physical abuse from during the marriage? And you're going to see Sam say yes. Now, when I asked her about that, she said, all I heard is police reports. But keep in mind, first of all, if Vargas had asked the exact same question of Tina Turner about her marriage to Ike, the answer would be no if Tina was honest, because she never called the cops. In fact, the answer is no 99% of the times. Very rarely is an abused woman going to call the cops. So my question is, why did she ask the question that way? They received 41 pages of police reports, photos, affidavits, and letters, and they ignored them all, and they claimed that they got nothing. Wow. And on the broadcast, you're going to watch it, and they're going to, at one point she said, you told us that there was evidence of abuse. We could find none of it. Keep in mind, there's a Child Protective Services report where the son says that his father stuck a gun to his head. There are police reports of David Rucky. At one point, he got caught putting a global positioning system device underneath the car of a friend of hers. There's another police report where he throws like photos off the wall right after they got divorced. So it's just outside of the like category that Vargas made. And then he started choking Sam. And the only reason he stopped is because her friend, who was a flight attendant, happened to be in like the bathroom and was watching it. And her friend, the flight attendant, if she was interviewed by 2020, that interview was left on the cutting room floor.
Wow. That's just incredible.
So as a result, she was smeared. And she looked like a crazy woman, a mommy dearest, and now they could proceed to the criminal trial. So how do they get away with the criminal trial? Almost all of the evidence of abuse was excluded. How do they do that? There's something called a motion in limine, Limine. Look it up. There was a motion in limine where every violation of a protective order, gone. The 2014 incident, gone. The 1994 incident, gone. You couldn't use the Child Protective Services report. In fact, when Sam testified, she was told you can't say abuse, you can't say protective orders, like 20 words she could not say. And that's how they convicted her. And oh, by the way, they wouldn't let both girls, Samantha and Gianna, testify. Only Samantha testified, and you can look this up. In fact, Brandon Stahl wrote the article. She testified by Skype. Have you ever heard of that? Have you ever heard of anyone testifying by Skype? What the jury didn't know was that her aunt, David's sister, was in the room, her grandmother was in the room, a lawyer was in the room, and David, her father, was just outside the room. But the jury didn't know that, and that's how she got convicted. Sam was arguing that my ex-husband's so violent that I was protecting my kids, and that's why I hid them. Except she couldn't introduce any evidence of violence. And there's one other thing that's very important. David had a whole bunch of protective orders, and many of them were dismissed. Almost all of them were dismissed. They were all dismissed by David Knutson. So one judge makes sure the protective orders go away. Another judge, and the judge in the criminal trial, her name is Karen Asfog, and she was not only the judge in the criminal trial for Sam, she was the judge in the criminal trial for a woman named Dee Dee Evervold. Sam took the kids to Dee Dee, who recommended they go to the Dollins. She knew the Dollins. Dee Dee spent, I don't know how much time in jail. She spent all that time in jail for a recommendation. The Dollins actually did the least time. Even though the girls lived with them, they did 60 days in jail. But she was the trial judge for all four. And there's one thing I need to say about Karen Asfog. In 2009, David Rucky swore uncontrollably at 2- and 3-year-olds who were with the neighbors that he hated, the ones who put installed the video camera on top of their house. The trial judge was Karen Asfog, and she dismissed the case on the eve of trial for a lack of probable cause. And lack of probable cause is the legal equivalent of you got nothing. And I've seen the police report. There was 6 eyewitnesses who saw him swear at the 2 and 3-year-olds, swear by saying like using the F word, other words in front of 2 and 3-year-olds, which is disorderly conduct. Now, you asked me about bribery.
Yes.
What besides bribery could possibly be the motivation of all of these judges?
Well, and that was my next question here is it bribery, or does David Runkey have a specific connection to these judges? Is he someone important in the community? I mean, where is his power? Is it just the money?
I do not know, but here's the irony. Sam's father, Albert Grazzini, was an extremely successful investor. Let me tell you how successful he is. He's dead now. He was so successful, he was the original investor in something called Medtronics, which is a very successful publicly traded medical device company. When I say original, that's not at the initial public offering stage. That's at the I'm in the garage and I need my first round of seed money stage. Can only imagine how much money he had. The rich and powerful one is Sam, except her father was dead by this point and her mother. I do not know. I know a lot about this case. What I do not know, what I cannot understand is why people like Brandon Stahl, 2020, David Knutson, Karen Asfog, why they all cater to this guy. He's not a good guy. I was on a radio show and a guy said, is he charming? He's not charming. Elizabeth Vargas knows full well how much of a monster he is. She doesn't care. Brandon Stahl knows full well how much of a monster he is. He doesn't care. David Knutson, all of these people, the prosecutor, they all don't care. There's one other anecdote I wanted to mention. While Sam was being cross-examined, the prosecutor actually asked her about her sex life, which had absolutely nothing to do with anything except that it was a way to humiliate her. And can I say one other thing that's
Please.
important? After she got back from Florida to Minnesota, they set bond, they set bail. You understand the process?
Yes.
So she's in jail. She sets bail. Michelle McDonald was going to be her attorney, at least for the time being, because she didn't have another attorney. So Michelle is told it was either 10 or 11 a.m., whatever the time is. Sam is taken an hour before, and they said, you're going now. And Sam goes, what do you mean? No, it's 11. It's 10 right now. They go, no, you're going now. She's taken into a private courtroom without an attorney. And the judge's name is Erica McDonald. And the judge, Erica McDonald, said, Judge David Knutson couldn't be here, but he left me instructions. I am instructed to set your bond at $1 million. So, Erica McDonald is currently the U.S. attorney in one of the regions of Minnesota. The way that this works, there's the Attorney General, William Barr, and then there are what I guess you'd call like regional offices. So like in my area, it's the Northern District of Illinois. So on any federal crime committed, say in Chicago and north of Chicago, would be prosecuted by the Northern District of Illinois, and there's a U.S. attorney for it. That's Erica McDonald in one of the areas of Minnesota. That's how corrupt she is. Now, why was David Knutson allowed to do that? I do not know, but doesn't it look like something else is going on? And one other thing, Michelle then shows up at the appropriate time. She's not told. Two people did know about it, Brandon Stahl and a guy named Michael Broadcorp, who I wish I had brought up more. Michael Broadcorp was a blogger for the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, but he was a political blogger. But starting in May of 2015, he became obsessed with this case. For the last 4+ years, he's written about nothing but this case. Now, how is it that Brandon Stahl and Michael Broadcorp knew that the hearing was rescheduled, but her attorney didn't? And one other thing, the girls were found in November of 2015. Before the cops showed up, Brandon Stahl and Michael Broadcorp were sitting in their car across the street from the Dollins. How did they know? Brandon Stahl has received not one, but 2 sealed warrants. And that warrant, that November warrant, because I got it eventually, was also sealed. Brandon Stahl has received not one, but 2 sealed warrants from police. Here's how it works. If law, and that's illegal, whoever, not on Stahl's end, but whoever leaked those warrants, that's illegal. In fact, that crime is much more serious than parental deprivation. Here's how it works. If police are willing to break the law twice for you, it's not because they think you're a good journalist. It's because they think you're going to do their bidding.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it. And it sounds like there is obviously an organized network of people here. It's what's interesting, Mike, is that once you started talking about this case, I can't open up any new browser windows on my computer, so I was unable to pull up any information about it for the audience to see. But I'm looking at coverage here from the Daily Mail, and they're claiming that the girls were hidden by an underground network of family court critics.
Right. That is complete and utter nonsense. The girls weren't hidden. The girls used their real names. They lived with the Dowlins for 2.5 years. Everyone in that town knew those girls' names. This underground network is a mirage. It's unicorn land. There's no evidence that this network exists. Yeah, the Daily Mail, they're full of crap. All of these people claiming this underground network, there's no evidence of it. They stayed with a network moves you around. They stayed with one family for 2.5 years. That's not a network.
It just
wait. But does it surprise you that the media got it wrong?
Not at all. Not at all.
Right.
These urinalists. All right. Well, Mike, I feel like we could continue to talk, but we only scheduled you for an hour. I really appreciate you coming on, and I would enjoy having you on the program again if you have anything else that we can talk about. It sounds like you've got just a multitude,
a million things I can talk about. Anytime you want to have me back on.
Excellent, sir. Well, thank you so much. And can you tell the audience, is there any place that they can go maybe to reach out to you or find you, social media, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Mike Volpe. My blog is The Provocateur with 2 E's.blogspot.com. That has my email on that blog. I'm not going to give it to you. If you want to reach out to me, do some homework and find it. I'm on Facebook as well. And if you have a story, reach out to me. No promises, but and then I have several books, including a book on this case called Sandra Grazzini Rucki and the World's Last Custody Trial. And I should say, I'm not like pro man or pro woman. I wrote another book called Bullied to Death about a man who committed suicide in a similar situation with a divorce, only sort of in reverse. And then a couple of other books called Prosecutors Gone Wild and the Definitive Dossier of PTSD and Whistleblowers. So, and then I write for Daily Caller and a whole bunch of other places that you can find me at.
Excellent. Please, everyone, go check that out. After the show is over, I will put Mike's blog into the description on the video. It's not allowing me to do anything. It's like I have no internet connectivity, but I'm obviously streaming still. I'm checking on my phone. All right, Mike, thank you so much for coming on the show, and we will talk to you soon.
Okay, have a good evening.
Yep, you do the same. Bye-bye. All right, guys, so that's just a very, very awful tale. To think that, it's like we all know how deep this corruption runs, and we know that it is endemic. It's among every single layer of society. And this is one of the reasons that I advocate personally for reduced government. We do not need giant bureaucracies deciding who gets to stay home with the family, who is going to be taken and removed forcefully because they have a difference of opinion with a medical doctor. I would imagine that anybody should be able to get a second opinion, or to think that an abusive father could run an entire judicial system in his local area so that he could basically, keep his kids away from his wife and make sure that some type of scorched earth policy, if I can't have them, you can't have them, and then we're also going to ruin your life. All right, you guys, we are going to be bringing in Thomas here in just a second, but first I wanted to show you the store. All right, so here is the Red Pill 78 Teespring. You can see we've got a Vape Lives Matter shirt. We've got stickers. We've got tank tops. We've got long sleeves. We've got hoodies, corruption detector, a 78 shirt. This is not a game right there, because this isn't a game. We are playing for our lives right now. I've got a MAGA shirt. I love this one right here. And unfortunately, this is the last of the story. It won't allow me to pull up anything else. I don't know what's going on with my internet, you guys. This is crazy. I think I need to restart my computer. Let's see, and it actually says that I'm offline. So I hope that I am still connected to the internet. But we're gonna give Thomas a call right now. I'm gonna open up the chat on my phone and hopefully you guys will let me know that you're still seeing me. Okay, I do see people saying that they see it. So to get to the store, you guys, it's teespring.com/stores/redpill78. You can go ahead and find that in the description below for this video. Now let's go ahead and bring in my good friend Thomas from TRUReporting. There we go, and call. Thomas, are you there, buddy?
Hey, what's up, dude?
Not much. Hold on just a second. Let me get you pulled over onto the screen here. So, Thomas, I'm having some really weird issues with my internet. I am unable to open up any new browser windows. I can't open up any new websites. I had to close down one window that had a ton of articles that I wanted to talk about in it. So I'm gonna. It's kind of a bummer because I can't get anything pulled up. I had your I had your YouTube, I had your Twitter all pulled up, but unfortunately we can't see that. You drinking some coffee there, buddy? So am I.
Yes, I'm drinking coffee.
Delicious. Thomas, how are you tonight?
My friend, I am nothing but the best tonight,
Excellent.
my friend.
Glad to hear that. Glad to hear that. Well, Thomas, I think the first thing I want to talk about is Suicide Week. Looks like
Oh my goodness.
looks
Yes.
like it's come to pass. Future has proved past yet again. Would you do me a favor, Thomas? Since I can't actually have the chat window open on my screen because YouTube closed it down. They closed down my streaming window also. Would you do me a favor and maybe just have the chat open there so if people want to say things or ask questions, then you can see it when it's scrolling by?
How would I do that? Would I do it on my phone or?
You just go to the stream in another window.
Okay,
Do you have multiple
yeah.
monitors?
I got you.
Awesome. All right. Yeah, I've got it open on my phone, but it keeps it keeps closing down. Of course, I need to just make it so that it doesn't.
It's okay.
Yeah. So I'm at the point, guys, for troubleshooting that I need to actually restart my computer. That's how serious this is. But I can't restart my computer because then the stream will end. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and flip over here to the first tweet that we're going to be talking about. Our friend and fellow researcher Methods gave us this list from an anon on the board showing several prominent deaths that took place.
So real quick, Red Pill. So Matthew Wayne is saying this noob is disgracing that MAGA hat hardcore.
What?
Obviously a shill, my friend.
Yeah, obviously
Give me a break.
Yeah, Thomas has been wearing the MAGA hat since the beginning. I don't know why somebody would say that. Must not watch the show because they don't know what's going on.
Sure.
Thomas, first of all, Thomas, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Okay, I love having you on the show. I love being able to chat about this stuff with you. That's right. Not a WP symbol. Not a WP symbol.
No.
All right. So
I knew you were gonna say that. Actually.
Okay, so, well, in the last week, okay, so we had the two
Sure.
NYPD suicides. Deputy Chief Stephen Silks, it was 1 month before his retirement, and then Joseph Calabrese, he was a homicide detective. All right, so both of these, pretty interesting. You know what the first thing I thought of when I heard of two NYPD officers dead with self-inflicted GSWs?
Southern District of New York?
No. I wondered if they had some type of contact with Anthony Weiner's laptop.
Right, the Southern District of New York.
Yeah. Well, I thought the Southern District of New York was like the district attorney's office.
Well, I thought the Anthony Weiner's laptop was in the Southern District of New York. I don't know.
I think that was
maybe so. I don't know. But you're right. We're both correlating the same thing. That's I too thought of Anthony Weiner. Yes.
Yeah.
In the laptop.
So here's the thing, though. We don't know what that chain of custody was. We don't know which officers had a hold of it. We don't know who was investigating it. Everything was kept under wraps. So, it's just, all it is just a couple of guys, who don't appear by any means to look like they're going to be ready to commit suicide, especially when, one of them's about to retire in a month. And if it was only these guys, I might be willing to brush it off, but it's not only these guys. We had a lot of really prominent people pass away. So, looking into this first guy, he was in Brooklyn, okay, veteran NYPD chief. And what struck me was that there was a source for True Pundit. You ever read True Pundit, the news?
Oh yes, very. That's the quality of journalism.
Yep.
True Pundit's great.
Yeah, True Pundit's great. So the source for a story there about the laptop was an NYPD chief. Again, not named. He was an anonymous source. But we had Joseph Calabrese. He was a 58-year-old homicide detective. He was discovered on the north shore of Rockaway Inlet on Thursday afternoon. He was found near bushes in Plum Beach, dead of a self-inflicted GSW. They were quick. They were quick to come up with that. Yes. Doesn't sound like there's going to be an investigation. Now, his car was abandoned at around 3 a.m., and that's how they decided they were going to need to search for him. So there was a manhunt on for him. And they were, at the time that they were doing this, they were mourning the other guy, Deputy Chief Stephen Silks. He was an executive officer of the Patrol Borough of Queens North. So two different areas of the NYPD. And I'd imagine NYPD is a fairly big organization.
Sure.
But he was found dead on Wednesday in his unmarked patrol car near Forest Hill Stadium. He was 62. He was the one who was going to be retiring. Now, Silks had been on the job for 38 years. Calabrese had 37, so they came in right around the same time. And then the latter, it says here, was a longtime board member of the Detectives Endowment Association. And they made a statement, and they said, of course, they were shocked. They were shattered beyond belief. He was a dedicated official, a union member, husband and father, salt of the earth kind of guy. So they're taking this and they're spinning it into, an opportunity for suicide awareness, because who's going to argue with that? We need to, stop people from committing suicide, but very, very interesting. They came in at the same time. They had about the same length of service. They died within 24 hours of each other, it looks like, and both of self-inflicted GSWs. We know that the deep state loves to do that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And if you think of people from New York, I have relatives there. I have relatives in Philly. And these people, even when you think of 9/11, these people are salt of the earth. They're just good. They work. They're very traditional people. And they don't let a lot of things get to them. So the fact that this guy, offed himself, I think is complete baloney. There's no way that
suspicious.
It's very suspicious. Absolutely. And there's a lot of these cases. I did a podcast on this earlier today with senators, and then I found something later that if we don't get to, I will definitely speak about. I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I think we're gonna get to it.
yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
We're gonna get to it.
Yeah.
So now things happen in threes, they say, but we have another pair. We have another pair of officials that were found dead of GSWs in their homes. We had two different state senators, one from Arkansas and then one from Oklahoma. Now, had you heard that Collins Smith, was it Jeanette Collins Smith, I believe her name was, from Arkansas, she had been investigating some type of kickback scheme that was taking money from CPS and diverting it to where? The Clinton Foundation.
Correct. Yes, and everything to do, keyword Arkansas, hello.
Yep.
Let's talk, at Clinton Foundation, hello. There's no coincidences, guys and gals. This is what they do. They off people. And they're criminals.
And it's happening all at the exact same time. We've got many of these happening this week, and they all have suspicious circumstances. We also had Deputy Dante Austin, a big-hearted LGBT leader. He's from Philadelphia. He was found dead inside the sheriff's office. I haven't even finished reading this article, and it says that he was in high spirits Okay, again, someone that they did not think would be looking to commit suicide.
Sure.
So they were gathered for Love in the Park for the raising of a rainbow flag marking June as Gay Pride Month. So that was going to be starting up. So just hours later, at about 6:45 a.m. Friday, Austin's body was found at his desk, and they said that he shot himself in the head. So another self-inflicted GSW on the job. And inside of the sheriff's office. So because of that, the first thing I'd want to know is there any footage? Were there cameras working, or were the cameras that were pointed at his desk perhaps not working on that day? Was it they were on the fritz?
Sure. Yeah, it's going to be something, off-putting. It's going to be something random, and let's that. Like I said before, these people are salt of the earth, especially from New York, or you have Arkansas. I don't know too much about Arkansas, but I know about the people of the Northeast. They don't give up, they don't quit, and then they're off. This doesn't happen. This is something you see in the movies, and we're witnessing a movie. It's sickening. It really is. It sucks.
It really drives it home that they are willing to do whatever it takes to protect themselves, and
Sure.
And so, I'm trying to think of any reason that this would happen, like what type of connections do they have going through Philadelphia? Obviously, Philadelphia is a very high crime area, so
Yes.
it would serve to, to think that there are probably some police officers who are maybe dirty, or perhaps, what kind of cases was this guy working on? Was he killed because he was getting too close to the truth on something?
Right. I mean, there's a definitive line between good and bad cops. You have cops that are paid off. You have cops that are there to do their duty. And I was just doing a podcast. Well, I did one that will be out tomorrow morning about Scotland and how orphanages that do abuse on children, if the children escape the orphanage and they go to a police officer, the police officer turns them in. This is the hierarchy of a almost like a masonry type levels. There's so many levels. Everyone, I mean, nurses, teachers, police officers, EMTs, mayors, city council, whatever. All these people can be involved in the same exact thing. So there's no question about it that there's no escaping this circle of just off these people that are just really bad. And if you rat one person out, if you go one way to try to escape, you're gonna get offed. This is the mafia, man. I mean, this is just like watching. Were you a fan of The Sopranos? This reminds me of The Sopranos.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, the Clintons and the cabal that they have. I mean, it's essentially just another type of organized crime.
Yeah, organized crime. There you go.
Yep. So Austin, he specifically was working in the Civil Enforcement Unit. So I don't know what crimes would fall under the Civil Enforcement, but maybe that makes me think civil infraction. So, maybe just like traffic tickets and stuff. I mean, what could he have been working on that would put him at risk? So it doesn't sound like there's anything that they can. There's nothing that they're pointing to in the article. And then next, we have the Coast Guard searching for a Texas police chief who just happened to be knocked overboard by a large wake. So this is the gentleman on the screen right there. He's a Texas police chief who served in the Army as a paratrooper. And he's
looks like Matt Whitaker.
Yeah, he does look like Matt Whitaker. So he's just missing right now. They haven't found him yet, apparently, unless something has happened since I pulled up this article. But he said they say he went overboard at 4 p.m. Friday, north of the Texas City Dike. So who was he on the boat with? I mean, he was out on the boat with his wife. So, what happened to his wife? I mean, I would imagine that she must have seen it. But just because he was out there alone with his wife, doesn't mean that they couldn't have come after him. Maybe they caused the wake. Maybe they made sure that there was no life jacket for him to wear. Maybe his wife is in on it.
Right. I mean, this reminds me, I just Googled this real quick. If you think about people being thrown overboard and murdered, what about Natalie Wood,
Oh yeah, and Robert
Christopher
Wagner.
Walken?
Yeah,
Remember? Remember
yeah.
that? Yeah, it's the same thing. Like it's very easy just to throw someone overboard. There was somebody else who was tied to that also. It's very, you know, there are a lot of boat accidents. Bad weather. You fall overboard. But give me a break. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, and
I
especially
understand
right
if a
now.
boat capsizes, but if you fall overboard, someone's gonna help you.
Yeah, you would think. All right, so moving on to the next strange death. We've got a U.S. Commerce Department official, Lola Gulamova. She was killed in a murder-suicide. Now,
Hmm.
Lola has got some very interesting connections. So she previously worked for NASA and the World Bank, and she was killed Friday in an apparent murder-suicide in D.C., all right, and the subject was identified as her husband. It happened around 9:25 a.m. yesterday morning. They responded to the 4300 block of Wyndham Place Northwest for a welfare check. Who called in the welfare check? I don't know. When the
Hmm.
officers arrived, they observed a man with a handgun. They heard a shot, and then they found the adult male suffering from an apparent GSW, self-inflicted, unconscious and unresponsive adult female. This woman was right there next to him, and she had multiple wounds. All right, so what's really interesting about her is that she had previously, when she was employed at the State Department, been stationed in Guangzhou, China. Guangzhou, China. That is the city in China where, or maybe it's a province or something like that, where we were shown some pictures of, I believe, Dianne Feinstein was there, and
Hmm.
there was that post with all of the license plates. And Guangzhou was mentioned on several different occasions. I actually have the post. I'm pulling it up here on my phone since I can't get it on my computer. Let's see. Do apologize, folks. Let me get this up. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, it was asking about where the picture was taken. Western intelligence contacts that the device was made at a super micro subcontractor factory in Guangzhou, China, a port city in southeastern China, 90 miles upstream from Shenzhen. It's the Silicon Valley of hardware.
Hmm.
And you remember that there were those boxes that we were showed that one time.
Yes.
Yes, which were, it was, I believe they were semiconductor materials, chips and stuff like that. That's the stuff which I believe was the that was using that Huawei rather was using to seed into the system, and then they would have the ability to spy on us. And then right here, Guangdong, Guangzhou, Shenzhen. Do you believe in coincidences? That was the license plate. So she had been stationed there at diplomatic posts in 2008. What do you think when you hear about these officials in diplomatic posts, Thomas?
What do I think? I think that either they're trying to escape, they're trying to leak, they're trying to throw someone under the bus to get away from, to maybe escape some sort of way. And there's people that are of a higher hierarchy that eliminate them. That's what this is. This is basically um, a cat and mouse chase. That's what
Yeah.
this is.
Well, what I
And
think specifically with diplomats are often used as cover for intelligence agents, specifically the
sure.
clowns. The clowns, okay? So, because there are, diplomatic missions that take place all over the world in many, many different countries. So
They're the
that,
puppets. Is that
yeah,
what you're saying?
yeah, well, it allows for cover. It allows these intelligence
Yeah,
agents,
absolutely.
yeah, to go into these countries under these diplomatic missions, and they can be stationed there. And they have a public mission, and then they have their private mission, which is working for the intelligence agencies. So she just happened to be there on a diplomatic mission. We know the State Department has plenty of spooks in it, plenty of spooks, people that are working for the clowns with these non-official covers and then their actual official missions behind the scenes. But I think that it's very possible that this woman right here was a member of this cabal, and she was probably silenced because it's getting to the point where they're going to need to start calling witnesses.
Yeah, they start calling witnesses, and then people start panicking. That's more people off.
Yep.
That's the game. That's the game that these people have enthralled themselves into. And there's no escape. There's literally no escape. It's just like Q says, there's no running, there's no hiding. We see all, we hear all. And that's for everyone. I think that the NSA has everything on everyone, and the deep state has everything on everyone also, because they know who the tentacles run so deep, and they know who's enthralled in their manipulation of everything. So they're just puppets. Like, you have puppets, and then you have CIA, and then you have people who are just, they're the hitmen, in my personal opinion.
So I had mentioned that she worked at NASA. She also worked at the World Bank for a little bit. She also worked for, looks like, United Methodist Committee on Relief. That would probably have been some type of a nonprofit. But she specifically, when she was at NASA, she worked at the U.S. Embassy in Moscow to manage relations between the U.S. and Russia on space issues. And she ensured specifically that U.S. astronauts on the International Space Station received appropriate support. Now, she joined the U.S. Commerce Department in 2008, worked at diplomatic posts in Guangzhou, China, Taipei, Taiwan, New Delhi, India, covered major sectors such as civil aviation, energy, and foreign investment. So each of these posts would be an excellent place to load in a spy so that they could get any kind of information that they wanted on these other countries. You got money, energy. Energy is money. Civil aviation, that's transport. It's incredible.
Absolutely.
Yep. And she also was there for a high-profile visit from who? Former U.S. President Barry Obama.
Oh, yes.
So who do we got next? We've got next is a name that you may know, Herb Sandler. He was a banker who financed something called ProPublica. ProPublica was a huge funding these left-wing propaganda outlets. They would make stories that were kind of like hit pieces. And he made his fortune building a small bank in Oakland, California. Have you heard anything about Herb Sandler and ProPublica?
Absolutely not. You're going to inform me tonight, I believe.
All right. So he was a banker and a philanthropist. Philanthropy, as we know, is a big thing in these circles that we like to discuss, because it allows people to essentially finance, passion projects, things that they want to do. These foundations, like the Clinton Foundation, they can take this money, they can move it around, and it looks like they're doing it for, say, the good of, children or something like that. Mm-hmm. But ProPublica, it was a nonprofit, and they did investigative reporting, and they look to be an alternative model for sustaining vigorous journalism. But I take issue with that characterization. But he was 87. He died in San Francisco. But this is what I thought was interesting. No cause of death was given. No cause of death was given. You're 87 years old. How easy would it be to just say he died of old age?
Sure, yeah, died of natural causes. That's typical. Why can't we see that? Why can't we know that? Wouldn't the family like to know that?
Yeah, it makes you think that there's something behind it, And of course, being a banker, he had he was a multi-billionaire. He had lots and lots of money. Much money. He also had the Sandler Foundation. This is actually something that came up at one time in the posts, I remember. People were mentioning the Sandler Foundation because that's who provided almost all of ProPublica's funding. So they would collaborate with traditional news organizations like the New York Times, and they've won several Pulitzer Prizes. And he actually served on the board of ProPublica. But he was kind of one of those people that would fund the types of hit pieces that we see on People Like Us, or the actual stories. They divert people's attention. And not a relation to Adam Sandler. I see people asking if it's a relation.
I just posted. I saw the same thing. That's Quinte. She's one of the best researchers. She's one of my mods. She's one of the best researchers out there, and actually gave me a lot of inspiration for the podcast that will be out due 9 a.m. tomorrow. Great researcher. Quinte, thank you.
Excellent. All right, so next, in our next series of interesting deaths, a German pro-mass immigration politician also received a GSW. So his name was he was a German Christian Democratic Union member. His name was Walter Lübke. I've heard of this guy. He's been in the press before. He recommended anti-mass migration Germans to leave the country. He was found dead at his house, shot in the head. Okay, sure sounds like murder there. He was 65 years old. He actually was well known for his support of CDU Chancellor Angela Merkel's open borders policy during the height of the migrant crisis. So sounds like he was, sort of responsible for that migrant crisis. And he was found dead on Sunday on his terrace. So says during the migrant crisis, Lübke caused controversy after attacking those against migration, saying those who do not share these values can leave this country at any time. And Germany is in trouble right now. They're not doing well because of all of this migration. You know, you've got...
no, it's an infiltration.
It is an infiltration, definitely. So right now they say that there's no likely suspects. They're still investigating it. At least they didn't just call it. Oh, you know what? There's an actual picture of it on here. I'm not going to show it because I do not want to get this video shut down if it's not already shut down.
Don't do that.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me just. I'm going to zoom over back to you for a second, Thomas, so I can jump past this picture. Man, I can't believe that they put that in there.
Was that Breitbart?
That's Breitbart. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little surprising, to be honest.
That is very surprising. The politicians in Germany that are anti-migration, they're vilified in the press. They receive a lot of flack. The press and the government in Germany work hand in glove in much the same way they do here in America. So I don't know. Maybe they're going to try to pin this on an anti-migration individual. Somebody who doesn't want migrants to be coming into the country, or perhaps it is just the same thing that we've been seeing with these other deaths that I've speculated on. And it's a cleanup operation. So here is the actual coverage from True Pundit on the Wiener laptop. Just wanted to touch on this real quick. So it talks about everything, the crimes against children, what was on there, the manner in which it looks like the emails came to be on the laptop, the NYPD sources that discuss the fact that it was obvious from these emails that Clinton knew about what Anthony Weiner was doing and did nothing to stop him, actually maybe perpetuated it. It's a shocking tale. And Thomas, do you remember when the news on this broke, this story came out, and then Eric Prince was out there talking?
Oh yeah, Eric Prince. That's Betsy DeVos. I think that's that's her brother.
Yep.
This dude is this guy is a killer in a good way. This guy offs people who are trying to attempt things that are against the government. What is it? Black Ops, we could say, something of that nature.
Definitely Black Ops.
Yeah, dude. Eric Prince is a beast. Mad respect to him. He was tied, wasn't he tied to Mike Flynn at one point? Or am I recollecting that wrong?
I don't know of him having any direct ties to Michael Flynn. I mean, I believe that he was a Flynn supporter. I could definitely see that. I think Eric Prince is a patriot, and I think that he's done some
100%
good work for the country.
Patriot, yes.
Yeah. So, actually, this is more reporting on that NYPD detective, so I can just get that.
Is that a recent True Pundit article?
No, that was from, I believe, either just before or just after President Trump came into office back in 2016, or could be early 2017.
That validates True Pundit. They're right there. They're spitting truth left and right. Yeah, exactly. Somebody in the chat, Mr. Sophocles, Blackwater. That's what he was.
Yep.
That's right.
Yep. So Yeah, this article is actually March 22nd, 2017. And, you mentioned the validation of True Pundit. They have caught an incredible amount of flack for their reporting because they have had a lot of anonymous sources come to them. They put out before anybody else that Donald Trump was being spied on. They said this stuff about the NYPD and Weiner's laptop. And so many people were saying that, this is fake news. True Pundit is the definition of fake news. Well, I haven't seen a single story put out by True Pundit that has not been validated. Everything that they do is quality in my view. Now, I'm sorry, I mentioned earlier, I said Jeanette Collins Smith. It's actually Linda Collins Smith. And I was going to play a little segment of this video, guys, where she was discussing this scheme that she had uncovered between CPS and DHS and the Clinton Foundation. But unfortunately, it's not going to allow me to pull it up. Now, here is the big one. If you guys remember...
yes, you got to it. Oh, man.
Couple months ago, Mr. W had been on the program, and I was going to read a thread from The Sharp Edge, but unfortunately, I can't pull it up. But that interview with Mr. W, he talked about the connection between Libya, Haiti, and gold. And a very particular person who was spearheading the effort to mine gold in Haiti. Thomas, you want to tell us who that person was?
Say it one more time. I'm watching the chat, so I'm almost like a mod at this point.
Hillary Clinton's brother. Hillary Clinton's
right,
brother.
Tony. Yes.
Tony Clinton. Tony Clinton was allegedly running a fake gold mining operation in Haiti. The point of it was to take the stolen Libyan gold and launder it through, basically a non-producing mine in Haiti, which would then all of a sudden produce just tons and tons and tons of gold, and it was all the gold from Libya. Well, Tony showed up dead. Tony showed up dead. He is no longer with us. Hillary Clinton's younger brother is no longer with us. And, Tony Rodham had a lot of connections to China. He raised Chinese money for Terry McAuliffe. He landed that lucrative gold mining permit in Haiti after Bill Clinton helped. This is from the Daily Mail. After Bill Clinton helped the country recover from earthquake devastation. Yeah. What a joke!
Yeah. He helped them. He helped all the kids, the starving kids, and after the earthquakes and everything else, they just came down there and they're just good people. This is the propaganda that they spew. Let's just be honest. Everyone in the chat, the 1,700 people. This is why we need to get away from lying. Yeah. Because this is seriously, Red Pill. This is the whole awakening, man. If somebody showed me this 4 years ago, I would believe it. I really would. I would be like, yeah, I understand that. But now it's so blatantly obvious.
Yes.
These people are lying.
And, the thing is, it's hard to get away from because we've got a network of people across all levels of society that are placed in a position so that they can control this narrative. Right now, hopefully, we are witnessing the destruction of the old guard, either at the hands of, our favorite Anon and President Trump and the team. And then also, I think that we are seeing some type of black ops mission to take out these loose ends and these hanging threads. Now, we've got another article right here that's called Teflon Tony Rodham, the Clintons' Shady ID. So it was recently said that, Hillary's next problem could be her little brother because he was going to get in trouble for a bunch of different things. Apparently, he was sitting in a courtroom 3 years ago. After skipping out on a sizable legal bill. This is her youngest brother. He struck a reassuring tone. Don't worry, the money is coming. I deal through the Clinton Foundation, Tony Rodham said, according to court transcripts uncovered by the New York Times. He gave his word that Hillary and Bill were setting him up with Haitian government permits to build a $22 million housing development in the earthquake-stricken country. I hound my brother-in-law because it's his fund that we're going to get the money from, Rodham explained, promising a $1 million check once the Haitian government paved the way. Enough both to cover the outstanding legal fees and take his family to Disney World. Look at that picture right there of Bill Clinton and Tony Rodham. Now, the construction deal fell through, and Rodham managed to settle his debt. And the next year, he got another crack at making money in Haiti's heavily regulated economy when he joined the advisory board of a company, VCS Mining, which was developing a gold mine on the island, because he'd met the company's CEO at a meeting of the Clinton Global Initiative. So it goes on and on. There's all kinds of things that that Tony was involved with, but none of them good. None of them good. What are you seeing in the chat there, Thomas?
I see people saying, "How did Tony die?" Well, I think it's very apparent that there's no explanation.
Yeah.
Right? Wouldn't there be an explanation? Give me a break. How old is this guy? In his 60s? Right?
I think he was 62.
He's in his late 50s, early 60s. There's an explanation. They're not putting it out there. Obviously, it's covered up.
Yep. And it goes on and on in the article, talking about the power of the Clintons and how Tony used that for his benefit. And I think it's probably plausible to say that the Clintons probably used Tony as much as he used them, because even though they're related, it allows them a certain amount of removability. They can just give the money to Tony. Tony can go do what he needs to do, and then launder the money back into the Clinton Foundation and into the pockets of the Clintons. I'm actually going to pull up.
I want to say real quick, I love what Methods just said. Of course, Hillary would tweet a death into existence. I love that. That is so true, man.
Now, wait a second. Does that mean that the tweet came out before any other announcement? Did she announce it?
You would have to ask Methods.
Please.
So, yeah, man, if you're listening, just let us know.
All right, so it was 10 hours ago. She said, "We lost my brother Tony last night." So, yeah, probably. "It's hard to find words. My mind is flooded with memories of him today. When he walked into a room, he'd light it up with laughter. He was kind, generous, and a wonderful husband to Megan and father to Zach, Simon, and Fiona. We'll miss him very much." So, father of 3. Wow, and a husband. And, of course, the top tweet in replying to Hillary Clinton is from Kathy Griffin. In a surprisingly somber moment, Kathy Griffin says, "I'm so sorry, Secretary Clinton. You are a wonderful, fun, and loyal sister. Which, remember when I went backstage to see you and he invited me to the fireworks show in D.C. for the 4th of July, like it was a party you were personally throwing. Still makes me sad. You are so loved."
Yes.
Kathy Griffin. I was looking to see how many people would be commenting on this. It looks like the vast majority of these people are trolling Hillary Clinton as a result of this tweet right here. But do you happen to know anything that Tony Rodham might have been into? Any news that you yourself have gotten on it?
No, man. This was something that I was going to release on another podcast, which would be for what is tomorrow, Sunday. This would have been for Monday. So this is the first I do know of Tony, but it seems like a lot of people don't know of Tony. I feel like this should have been something that everybody should look into. Like everyone or any person a part of Hillary Clinton's family, they're not nobodies. They're not people who work for they're not school teachers, or I'm not saying school teachers are bad or anything that is something that is less than expected. Anyone to do with any of these families is going to be upper echelon. And I think that a good word of advice is to just look into even Bill Clinton's family, Hillary's family, Michael Obama's family, Hussein, everyone. I think you should look into everybody.
Yeah, no one is
Look
safe.
at how far back this stuff goes. They're all royalty, man. Let's just get with it. They're all royalty.
No, American royalty.
Yeah.
Now we've commented on the gold, but my friend and fellow researcher Matthew at Truth Not Fiction Matters also just let me know that he was also into weapons. So some type of sale of arms, or perhaps he was smuggling.
Okay.
So it could be a connection there. But, like you were saying, everybody that's connected to these people, they're all dirty too. So I think that quite honestly, none of these people are safe. Whether it's going to come at the hands of these black ops teams that are going out and doing it, or if it's going to be at the hand of the president through his team that are cleaning these people out, cleaning out this old guard.
So again, Ava Ann says in the chat, "Take your hat off, Thomas." Why would you say that? Well, I would hope one of the and that's just a troublemaker. But another post, it says here, HRC still thinks she's a little princess. Let's not look over HRC. HRC is not something that is little. I believe HRC is way higher than Hussein Obama. I've covered this many a time. This is not someone to just look over. Bill Clinton, maybe so, but HRC, no. These people, yes, are fake royalty, but let's not forget they are royalty. These are all within the same bloodline, and they have a lot of control, a lot of power, and it's going to take a lot to bring these people down. This isn't some middle to lower level criminal. This is someone who makes they make things happen. They're pushers. And they're not jokes. They're not to be taken lightly at all by any means.
No, very powerful people.
Yes.
And I dare I say, I think that Hillary Clinton is the real power in the Clinton dynasty.
Bro, me too, man. I've talked about this a lot of times. I get a lot of backlash for it, but people say, oh, Hillary and Marina Abramovic, they're just they're in Hollywood with the Marina, and then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. No, if you look into these things, if we're talking spirit cooking, so on and so forth, I don't want to say a lot of key words, but I'm saying that these are high priestess. This stuff is ancient, man. These people know what's going on. It's well above the majority of a lot of our heads, and they're not to be taken lightly. They're not just Secretary of State. They're not just artsy people who do spirit cooking. These people are evil, man. And I don't even know if they're even people anymore to this point.
Oh no, I totally understand. Metaphorically and actually, So there was somebody else who passed away recently, a news anchor in Florida, TV news anchor. This was a man named Todd Longin. He was an Emmy Award-winning broadcaster for WPLG down in Florida. He passed away at home at the age of 56. And let's see, he's the weekend news anchor. And he didn't show up to work on Sunday, so his coworkers called in. Calls to his home went unanswered because his wife was mysteriously out of town for the weekend. But she tried to reach him as well, it said. Now, there was a tangential connection to the Clintons. Apparently, he was well known for a segment that he did with Bill Clinton where they ate fried chicken together.
What's up with chicken and barbecue sauce and pandering to the black community? Can someone explain that to me?
Yeah, that is very true.
It's so obvious. Stop it.
It makes me think of that time that Hillary Clinton was speaking to that audience and she affected that Southern accent.
I'm pretty sure that was South Carolina. I'm pretty sure it was.
I've come too far.
So cringeworthy.
All right, and let me go back to the back to the thing here. So we had Tony Rodham, we had Herb Sandler, the handkerchief. There, he was the one exchanging the emails with JP. We're not going to say his full name.
That's huge. This is huge.
The handkerchief guy. The oh my goodness, yes. And he asked about the Domino's on the cheese and the pizza. Oh my goodness, that makes so much sense now to see that he's gone. Wow. Well, that is the full list of who we had on here. Let me see. I actually was able to get Edge's Twitter pulled up here. Let me see if I can get to that tweet. Nope, it's not going to allow me to pull it up here. Oh no, here it is.
The Sharp Edge. Everyone needs to follow that seriously.
Yes. Sharp Edge is an amazing researcher. Yes. You guys definitely follow her. So going to the beginning of her thread on the Libyan gold, let's see. Here we are. So we came, we saw, he died. But where is the Libyan gold? Was the plot to oust Gaddafi a scheme to steal Libyan gold and wash it as newly discovered Haitian gold? Let's dig into this gold mine theory. And if you guys want to watch the video with the interview with Mr. W, that is on my channel. It says Out of the Shadows at the top of the card, and there's two men on there. It was the first appearance of my friend White Hat, who's a government employee and a hacker, an ethical hacker that was willing to come and speak with us, and then Mr. W talking about this very thing here. And we're trying to get Mr. W back on the program, but he's a very busy man. So I think maybe after this week and this weekend of happenings, I think he's probably going to be interested in or be able to come back on the show. So here's an email from WL. It was leaked through WL between HRC and Sid Blumenthal. You all know the name Sid Blumenthal, but it's talking about the overthrow of Gaddafi and then the gold. What are we going to do with that gold? How much gold is there? I want the gold. You ever seen that video about the leprechaun in Alabama?
Yes, I know exactly. Yeah.
I want the gold.
Yeah.
I want the gold.
Yeah. Not a bad movie, by the way. The first one's good too.
I have to admit,
I'm not going to go off on a tangent real quick.
I've never actually seen Leprechaun. Maybe I need to.
I swear to God, it's not that bad. It's pretty good.
It's so great. Oh, man. Oh, and Matthew from Truth Not Fiction Matters wants to remind everyone that he is not suicidal. He is not interested in ending his own life. So in October 2011, Gaddafi is gone. He had an estimated 143 tons of gold. Where did it go? Where did it go? The reasons for NATO's intervention in Libya were to prevent Gaddafi from burying the American dollar. Did you know that Gaddafi had a plan to move his country off of the regular dollar and out of the standard monetary system and back new Libyan currency with gold? And then he was going to create kind of an African central bank. Can you imagine the disruption to the standard financial system if a country with the power and the resources that Libya had at the time, what they would have done? And I don't know how many people realize or remember the steps that were taken by the international community to bring Libya back in. They had been, kind of on the outskirts for a long time. They were looked at, and Gaddafi was looked at in the same light as, say, Kim Jong-un, or Gorbachev. The idea that this was like, a despot, a dictator, someone that was a danger to U.S. interests and our sovereignty. But Gaddafi, apologized and made reparations for various various attacks that took place across the globe. The Lockerbie incident, shall we say. And now from 2011 to 2012, after the Haiti earthquake, so the Haiti earthquake takes place right after they remove Gaddafi, there's a flurry of exploratory drilling where they found precious metals worth potentially $20 billion deep below the tropical ridges in the country's northeastern mountains. So like magic, gold is discovered within a Haitian mine. And then in 2013, enter HRC's brother, Tony Rodham. He's added to that advisory board of the company that owns the mine, and Tony's involvement with the mine became controversial in Haiti because of the belief it would benefit foreign investors instead of Haitians. Of course it would. So now, June 8th, 2019, in light of a number of suspicious deaths in recent days, ranging from NYPD officers to GOP senators, now the death of HRC's brother, Tony Rodham. And here is that tweet. And you can see right there Hillary commenting on it this morning at 9:13 a.m. Tony Rodham was the youngest of HRC's brothers, and his career was riddled with controversy, including using his leverage with the Clintons to obtain a pardon for a couple convicted of bank fraud in 1982 over the objections of the Justice Department. However, the most notable controversy surrounding Tony Rodham would be his connection to the Haitian gold mine. Was the Libyan gold stolen after the death of Gaddafi, stored in this Haitian mine, and washed to emerge as newly discovered Haitian gold? And then, of course, she has a link to the interview that I did with Mr. W. And just to remind you guys, Mr. W is a longtime security contractor who worked in Arkansas during the Whitewater investigations and knows all about the Clintons. Mr. W is a wealth of information, you guys. This guy knows so much about so many different things. When he was on the program before, we only had, the 2 hours, but I think that he and I spoke for just over an hour, because we had to bring in White Hat as well. But did you have any other notable deaths that you came across, Thomas, this week? Did I miss any?
I don't know. All I know is that throughout the entire chat, I am seeing is 10 deaths. Everyone is saying there's been 10 deaths. But my question to you is it suicide weeks? Is this plural? Because I don't know if with the Q post if it said suicide week. Are there multiple weeks? I mean, I believe there's going to be multiple weeks of this people going missing, people unexpectedly dying, you know, GSWs, as you say.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to see more and more of this. This is just the beginning.
Yeah, I don't think that it was ever meant as just as a singular event. I mean, I know that
Sure.
they said suicide week, they said suicide weekend. I think that it's a term that we can use anytime we've got a multitude of deaths like this, just crazy deaths coming out. So on the list that Methods gave us, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we've touched on all of them. We have touched on all of them. Thomas, we've only got a couple minutes left. Was there anything from the news this week that you wanted to talk about? I know that Thursday, D-Day, did not turn out as many of us had hoped, but that's okay. I mean, we're making predictions here, and we can't.
Yeah,
bat
I'm getting flack from that, and I don't ever say these things, and people who follow me, they know that, and I apologize. I said, I said that it was going to be Thursday. It didn't happen. It just seemed so perfect for it to happen, but it didn't. And just take it as a grain of salt. It was just kind of an observation.
The logic was sound.
Maybe even a gut feeling. What were you about to say? Go ahead, man.
I said the logic was sound, Thomas. I don't think that
sure.
I'm not going to give you any flack over it, but everything that you put together, it got me excited, man. I love this stuff. That's the juice. What we're doing here is drawing connections. We're trying to predict the future before it happens.
Yeah, man.
And
and again, I've never done that before. I don't pick dates, times, none of that stuff. It just seemed from my research that it was going to add up to Thursday. And I had, not just you, man, I had tons of people on Twitter say, you're right. And I guess I was wrong, but it's cool.
Yeah, whatever.
It's fine.
The important thing is that you can pick yourself up and keep going. I mean, we got
a
never-ending news cycle. So then, and nothing else that you saw during the week that you wanted to bring up. How about the deal that we've got with Mexico now? That is super exciting stuff. I had a tweet from President Trump that I wanted to show, but I'm unable to. President Trump made the threat of the tariffs on Mexico. Next thing you know, Mexico freezes the bank accounts of the traffickers that were organizing all of these caravans coming up to the southern border. So now they have no money, so they can no longer fund these caravans. They also now have made a deal with the United States. They have agreed to actually do something about the immigration problem. They're going to be stopping people. They're going to be offering them amnesty. I don't know the full extent of the deal because I don't have it in front of me because of my internet issues. If you want to pull that up, I think that's great. I mean, it shows that President Trump's methodology absolutely works. The art of the deal is foolproof. And people come to me and they get so freaked out. Oh, I don't like the way President Trump's talking. Oh, you're not supposed to make threats to a foreign nation like that. I'll tell you what. You speak softly, but then carry a big stick, or you give people the impression that you're carrying a big stick and you're willing to use it, and people are going to go ahead and they're willing to make a deal because of it.
Absolutely. And I have a huge question to ask. I put it out there earlier today. With what happened remember the bucket in the window at the White House? I know this is so random, but do you remember that?
Say that again.
Remember the bucket in the window? Does anyone remember that?
I remember the bucket in the window, yeah.
Did anything come of that?
Gosh, I don't know. Nothing that I can think of specifically right now. But I mean, that bucket in the window seems like it could be a signal, of some type.
Sure. Well, I went over something today that there was not a fern, but it's what is Hillary Clinton's code name? She has a code name.
Wasn't she Evergreen?
Evergreen.
Yep.
Yes. and there was a tree that was leaning over. Yeah. What about the evergreen tree? Absolutely. I went over that. And
Yeah.
I asked people in my post or in my video, what about the bucket? Did anything come of that? Does anyone know it, or is that just something to
You
throw
know,
by the wayside?
I mean, it could have been very, very likely something that happened behind the scenes that we just don't know about. I don't think. Obviously, we know that they're communicating by code, but they're doing it publicly, and it's not always going to turn out like the that what was it, the county event or the school event that happened was it in Nevada, or was it Northern California or something like that? I can't remember, with the initials in Comey's tweet. Let's see. Rachel Byers just said, "I trust you people. I know I can find the truth with you. You people are making my night. Thank you for responding to me and setting me straight." Well, thank you, Rachel, for being here, and thank you for supporting the show. I do appreciate it. All right, guys. Well, we are winding down. We've got 2 minutes left. So, Thomas, tell everybody, of course, where they can find you.
Oh my goodness, yeah. So definitely, guys, everyone listening, please. This was been just a great opportunity. I love coming on these chats. I raced home to do this because I wouldn't want to do anything furthermore. You can follow me at TRUReporting on YouTube, and you can follow me on Twitter at TRUReporting. Um, that's it for me. We've hit 11,000 followers on Twitter, which is huge for me. I couldn't even believe it. It's really escalated.
You're almost at 12 now, dude. I was just looking at it. I think you got
Yeah,
11,700 over that.
yeah, and it's blowing up. So definitely, please, the walk and talks. Yes, Lauren, I do walk and talks. I know Red Pill, you're familiar with that. I just started doing that. That I do walk and talks. I do it every day, where I just flip on the live stream, and we go for a walk and we talk about what anybody wants to talk about. I do a live stream. I'm stating it now. It will be Wednesdays from 8 to 9. Every Wednesday, we will do a live call-in show. And Red Pill, I just want to thank you for having me aboard, because this is exciting and it's so fun, man.
Yeah.
This is the best thing to be a part of for anyone. The 1,800 people in here right now, this is the best thing to be a part of.
Well, Thomas, thank you so much for saying that, and thank you for coming on the show, brother. I mean, I'm so happy to have met you, so honored to be here with you and everyone in the audience. It means a lot to me, you guys. So I thank you for being here tonight, you guys. This is a great conversation. Thank you to Mike Volpe for being here in the first hour. Just remember, everybody, if you want to check out my merch, you can go to the link in the description below. It's all original, and it's all designed by my friend Bree, and I just want to say thank you to her for that. So I guess that's it, guys. We're going to go ahead and sign off for the night. Everybody, thank you for being here. As always, this has been Red Pill 78. I am the corruption detector with Thomas from TRUReporting, and this was your Red Pill News. Good luck, everyone, and God bless.